Hello, welcome to the channel Y Stories. Enjoy watching.
Do you think just because you sewed a dress from old fabric you're going to be a little queen? Her husband laughed. But as soon as he looked at his boss's wife at the corporate event, Christina, for probably the thousandth time, looked at her reflection in the mirror and hopelessly waved her hand because, for the thousandth time, what she saw didn't please her at all. "No, Mom, this is absolutely not it," she said, flopping into a chair and bursting into tears. "Christina, stop. What nonsense," said the petite woman. "You're acting like a child. Really, what's this hysterics over clothes? You were calm and happy with yourself even before exams at school, and now, almost 30, you're crying like someone took your last hope in life." "Yes, that's exactly it," came the trembling voice in reply, and the crying, as if fueled by new motivation, escalated to a new level. Claudia, the mother of the distressed girl, shook her head and sighed. Knowing her daughter, she understood that it was impossible to interrupt or stop Christina's hysteria. The only thing to do was wait it out. Christina rarely fell into such states, but when she did, she went all in, completely immersed in them. However, Claudia believed that the previous reasons for despair were far more worthy. For example, the loss of her beloved pet cat Fred, who had lived to a ripe, respected age, graying with age. Or the news that, due to organizational issues, the school trip, including Christina, to the Seaside Creative Festival wouldn't take place. These were understandable, serious reasons, and Christina hadn't shown such intense emotions in over 15 years. Now, watching her 30-year-old daughter cry and tear her hair out was strange and awkward. After all, Christina was a serious person, always known for her composure, practical approach to everything, and healthy irony, both toward the world around her and herself. And now, here she was, sitting and crying so hard that the old chair beneath her was shaking and her red nose practically glowing. "All right, Christina, enough already. This is just silly." Claudia firmly touched her daughter's shoulder and handed her a glass of water. "Here. Drink this and calm down." Christina, still sobbing and sniffling, glared angrily at her mom. "It's not that silly," she muttered. "You'll see if I end up losing my husband over all this. Then you'll understand if it's silly or not. Mom, you don't get it. I have to look good at this corporate event. No, not just good, but spectacular, and instead, I look like a poor relative in everything I've tried on. What am I supposed to do, huh? You know how many things I've already tried on. I'm going to have blisters on my hands from these endless fittings. Nothing, absolutely nothing fits me because I'm just some ugly freak. I've always told you that finding a decent outfit is hard. And by the way, it's an extremely difficult task for most women. Your non-standard looks have nothing to do with it. And by the way, you are not ugly. Where did you suddenly get these teenage complexes at 30? Claudia looked at her daughter reproachfully, but Christina was unyielding and adamant. "Oh, don't start that song about small but proud women again, okay? How did Dad always joke, big women are made for work, and small ones for love? Is that how it went? Even that's a lie. My little stature won't spare me from working like a horse. Actually, like a pony." "Christina, stop," her mom said angrily. "What do you mean, little stature? You think 156 centimeters is dwarf height?" "Yes, Mom, times have changed. We live in the era of tall people. Shorties like me aren't taken seriously. Just look around, they don't even make proper clothes or shoes for us. So I can't find a decent dress or shoes. Tell me, where should I go for evening shoes in my size, a 34? To Children's World? You know, they don't have festive heels there. I'm done, I'm tired." Christina waved her hand and stared out the window. "Christina," Claudia took a deep breath, as she always did before trying to convince her rather stubborn daughter. "Christina, darling, I don't know where these thoughts came from. What is this, really? Just because you haven't found a dress for the party yet? It's not just for a party, Mom. I told you already," Christina said, throwing her hands up in frustration, jumping to her feet, and pacing around the room. This is not just any corporate event you can dismiss. It's a very important evening. Such an event happens only once a year, and this one is special. It's the company's anniversary. Juan is invited to this evening for the first time, you understand? And he has to be there with his wife, meaning me, Mom. And Juan told me 2 months ago that I absolutely had to be there. And you know, we've been going through a tough time lately. We barely go anywhere together, and here's a chance to go out, to be seen, for him to see that I can be just as good as all these flashy women with their 1.5-meter legs. Christina suddenly stopped in front of the mirror, looked herself over from head to toe once more, and let out a hopeless sigh. Anyway, I need to look not just 100%, but 200%. And me? Christina gestured angrily toward the mirror. Mom, I look like a short 8th grader who got into her mom's closet, but I need to look like a beautiful, confident woman. The wife, by the way, of one of the department heads of the company. Why do I have this appearance? Claudia leaned on the table, resting her chin on her hand, and continued to look at her daughter. Christina was, of course, exaggerating with her criticism of her appearance. Yes, she wasn't tall, but then again, neither was anyone in their family. Claudia herself was only a couple of centimeters taller than Christina and remembered well that her own mother and grandmother were also short, petite women. In her youth, Claudia never saw her height as a disadvantage. Her husband used to call her a dwarf, but in fact, he saw her petite size as a benefit. First of all, as Pasquale said, a small wife was a real bargain. She ate less. Second, she could buy clothes from the children's section and even turned the shower on low so the water stream wouldn't knock her down. The last part was, of course, a humorous exaggeration, but it was hard to disagree with the first 2 points. Pasquale wasn't the only one who appreciated Claudia's small stature. She remembered another voice, a soft one, but lifting her up to the sky, and other words, quiet, yet they drowned out the entire world. How wonderful that you're such a little one. I just love to hug you and carry you in my arms for no reason. I just want to pick you up and hold you tightly. But this memory always stirred painful feelings, which hadn't lessened over the years. With an effort of will, she resolutely turned her thoughts back to her husband's playful remarks. Do you know what the secret of my Claudia is? Pasquale would say. Why is she always so lively and doesn't have any health problems? She's small, light, and doesn't put strain on her joints or spine, so she flits around like a butterfly. With age, especially after Pasquale passed away a few years ago, Claudia couldn't flit around like a butterfly anymore. Yet, there was still a lightness in her, a characteristic charm that belonged to small women. Claudia involuntarily glanced at the same mirror that had once again displeased Christina. Still full of chestnut-colored hair with a hint of gray that softened the red, green-brown eyes, a face not young, of course, with plenty of fine but noticeable wrinkles. In general, everything was in line with her age. And most importantly, whatever was going on in her life, Claudia never felt deprived by fate just because sometimes she had to look up at people. There were far weightier reasons for frustration and distress, but this seemed like the ultimate desperation. Although, in some ways, Claudia could understand Christina. No, of course, it was entirely understandable. In fact, today, she had a strange feeling, as if all of this had happened long ago, many years ago. But, let's not fool herself. Of course, it had, only instead of Christina, it was her, and she was saying the same things. There was nothing to wear, and nothing suited her. And then came the word spoken in a male voice, which she remembered in full detail even now. Claudia, you're a wonderful seamstress, and the most beautiful girl in the world. So what are you waiting for? Make yourself the best dress. Do you want me to bring you the most beautiful fabric in the world? And then there was a touch of something soft, flowing, silk-cool, like it was cascading down her shoulder and arm, with a strange, glowing color, and a quiet whisper as the silk slid down, and her own excited, trembling voice. Wait, what are you doing? Look, everything's fallen on the floor. Darling, we're going to crumple this miracle. Please, wait. And the voice, with a slight hoarseness wrapped in velvet. Claudia, I love you. Barely emerging from the unexpected rush of memories, she stared at her reflection in surprise, shook her head reproachfully, and addressed the snoring Christina in the chair. "Christina, darling, you have a wonderful appearance. You are a charming, young woman, and you know that. Stop pouting. Especially since I have an offer for you." Claudia smiled. "What if we stop looking for your elusive dress? You're never going to be satisfied anyway. And we'll just sew it ourselves. What do you think, Christina? It seems like a great idea to me. You need something very simple, without unnecessary details, and at the same time, elegant, you understand? Are you serious?" Christina lifted her head. "Mom, you're suggesting I go to a sparkling, pompous event in a self-made dress? You know, dear, let me remind you that your mother is a certified costume designer, and she's always been considered quite a good seamstress. The most important thing is that the dress should be made from some unusual fabric. For example." Suddenly, Claudia fell silent mid-sentence as if she had remembered something, and she suddenly withdrew into herself. "Mom?" Christina asked carefully. "Where did you go? What do you mean, unusual fabric? Like butterfly wings? Amazon spider threads? Paradise bird feathers?" "Not that exotic," Claudia laughed, coming out of her unexpected stupor, "but still, it has to be something special. And do you have something specific in mind?" Christina stared at her suspiciously. "Of course," Claudia nodded, "I certainly do. You know, while you were suffering here, I suddenly remembered something. I just need to figure out where that box is. When did I last see it? Where? She closed her eyes, trying to remember, and decisively climbed onto the high stool in front of the closet. A few minutes later, Claudia placed a small rectangular box on the table and, for some reason, took several deep breaths before opening the lid. Then, cautiously, as if afraid to startle someone or something, she pulled away several layers of crinkling paper. "Mom, what's this?" Christina breathed out in surprise. "This is the best and most expensive silk in the world," Claudia explained reverently, hesitantly extending her hand before suddenly pulling it back. "This is real elite fabric, mulberry silk. It's made in Asia on special farms from silkworms that are fed only leaves from a specific type of mulberry tree for breakfast, lunch, and dinner. But that's not important. The main thing is the result, perfect, 100% natural silk of the highest quality. And you know, it's handmade and dyed in some special way. So, there is no other piece of fabric in the world with the exact same color. Wow, the color is incredible. What's that shade?" Christina sighed, instinctively reaching out and watching as faint golden pink highlights flickered on her skin. In the box lay the fabric, subtly shimmering, smooth as liquid glass, with pearl golden tones that gently blended into a muted coral hue. "How beautiful!" Christina breathed. "You certainly can't buy something like that in a store." "Exactly," Claudia nodded. "You can't buy this. This fabric was brought to me a long time ago by someone." She suddenly faltered, blushed, and unexpectedly, as if something dangerous were about to burst out of the box, slammed the lid shut. "Mom, what's going on?" Christina was stunned. "Nothing," Claudia said with a trembling voice, stroking the box with her palms. "I just forgot how hard it is. It turns out, I still have trouble touching this silk." "Trouble?" Christina asked, bewildered. "Mom, I don't understand. Honestly, you're acting kind of strange." "Oh, Mom, you're going to faint. I just need to sit down." No, it's okay, Christina, everything's fine. It's just that I suddenly remembered everything, as if it happened yesterday. It's all this silk." "Wow, Mom. I knew you were a romantic at heart, but that you could faint at the sight of a piece of fabric? Even if it's incredibly beautiful, I didn't expect that." "Christina, this, as you say, incredibly beautiful piece of fabric is all that remains from someone very dear to me. Someone I still hold dear." "A dear person?" Christina asked in surprise. "Someone dearer than Dad?" Claudia flinched, looked at her daughter with a frightened expression, and suddenly mumbled, "Christina, I don't know how to explain this. Please don't be upset with me, and don't think badly of me. I always respected your father. I was grateful to him, I owe him a lot. We lived together for so many years, and it was good, peaceful. I really felt protected by him, like behind a stone wall. That's true. Or rather, it was like this. I hid behind him, like a small, scared girl, because I ran away from someone else. I couldn't bear it. I didn't believe. And maybe it was in vain." Claudia suddenly hid her face in her palms and sat quietly, very still. So, Christina broke the silence. "Today seems to be a day of revelations and memories. You know, Mom, I just heard a lot from you about Dad, gratitude, peace, respect. But love, it didn't come up. Didn't you love Dad?" Claudia took her hands away from her face and looked at her daughter. Surprisingly, there were no tears on her face. Her eyes looked directly at Christina, honestly, with an unfamiliar expression. Christina had never seen her mom look like this, bright, stubbornly defiant, alive. "I loved him," Claudia said. "I loved him, but not like that. And that's why I was never truly happy, Christina, never." "Maybe you'll tell me more?" Christina whispered. Claudia grew up, like most girls, playing with dolls, and over time, everyone around began to notice that Claudia's dolls were dressed more elegantly than those of others, more fancifully and even a bit exquisitely. "Our Claudia's Maria and Clara are dressed better than we are," her grandmother laughed, joking about how her granddaughter's dolls were better dressed than she and her daughter Josefa. Watching how the 8-year-old granddaughter expertly attached a colorful patch to another large-eyed beauty, her grandmother suddenly realized that the girl wasn't just playing with the doll, but was enthusiastically decorating it. The woman thought for a moment and took out an old sewing machine from a scratched plywood case. "Come on, Claudia, come here. We'll learn to sew." "Enough with the nonsense," she said, setting up the amazing contraption in front of the intrigued girl, a machine that gleamed with golden swirls on a black background, beckoning to turn the polished wheel. "Mom, you didn't throw out that monstrosity, did you?" Josefa exclaimed with a playful horror. "You really are something. Claudia is going to teach her to sew on this ancient machine?" "This isn't an ancient machine," Fernanda remarked sternly, a woman full of irony and energy, despite her age and painful legs. "This is part of our history, almost a family member. By the way, my dear, if it weren't for this so-called monstrosity, who knows, you might not have married your Sergei." Josefa smirked but said nothing. Of course, her mother was exaggerating a bit, but there was no denying that Josefa had been better dressed than many during her college years, and that was undoubtedly thanks to her mother, Fernanda, who was an excellent seamstress and could sew even fairly complicated outfits that her tireless daughter had found in fashion magazines and movies. So, Claudia certainly had someone to inherit her love and ability for sewing. As for the delicate, almost artistic sense of style in clothes, that was something Claudia was born with. Some are born with special vocal cords to sing beautifully, others develop a gift for poetry, and others might just run faster than everyone else. Claudia, however, was born with a special gift. What people call a sense of style. And it manifested quite early, distinguishing Claudia from her peers. Although she wore basically the same clothes as her friends, which were mostly sewn by her grandmother, she stood out with something that even the all-knowing household spirits couldn't quite define or identify. "Oh, she's doing it. Look at her go," they would invariably say to each other when they spotted Claudia running out of school. "That little show-off is growing up. Josefa will be crying over her soon. She's still just a kid, and already she's pretending to be someone important." If we set aside the ironic tone predicting a grim future for the girl and her mother, what remained was simple feminine astonishment, evident in the women's eyes even after Claudia disappeared behind the entrance door. The little coat she'd been wearing for about 3 years now, the hem of a simple skirt peeking from underneath it, shoes that clearly matched the age of the coat, nothing particularly special. But somehow, on Claudia, everything looked so good that you just wanted to turn around and smile after her. Maybe it was the mandatory scarf or shawl casually yet beautifully tied around her neck or head, or the hat, simple yet stylish, sitting perfectly on Claudia and her reddish hair, or something else. Who knows? But the fact remained, Claudia was charming. And looking at her, it became clear that it didn't matter what she was wearing. What mattered was what she did with it, how she wore it, and how she matched everything so beautifully. "Isn't it amazing?" shared Claudia's class teacher with a colleague. "Imagine, yesterday Claudia came to see me after school, and she had a scarf tied around her neck. You know, just a simple, small neckerchief. And the way she tied it, I just stared, sitting there like a fool, watching her in silence. She told me, 'Michelle, I came to fix my grade,' and I almost wanted to say, 'Sweetheart, why do you need my geography with all your little tricks and accessories? You'll do fine without knowing the meridians.'" "Did you say that out loud?" laughed her colleague. "No," sighed the teacher, "but I couldn't pull off the scarf trick again. Even though I spent a good half hour in front of the mirror trying. I made something similar but immediately took it off because it looked ridiculous on me." In addition to her inexplicable sense of style, Claudia was simply an enchanting person. Small, slender, delicate, she would carelessly push her reddish-brown hair off her face, revealing her chameleon-like eyes, which seemed to be either brown with green sparkles or greenish with dark golden specks. Despite her petite size, Claudia was strong and resilient, something you wouldn't expect at first glance. Always at the back of the line in height, she never lagged behind her taller peers in sports, studies, or neighborhood activities. Yet, the evening chats with her grandmother while the rhythmic hum of the sewing machine filled the air were more attractive to Claudia than whispering with her friends about boys. Claudia quickly mastered the basics of sewing, and despite the age of their family's sewing machine, as her mother called it, she would easily stitch straight seams, deftly make pleats and darts, and, without hesitation, cut the fabric according to her own designs. "Good job, Claudia," her grandmother would say. "You have a steady hand, a good eye, and, most importantly, she seems to already know exactly how it'll turn out. And, what's most amazing, it always turns out exactly as she intended." Apparently, Claudia's destiny was decided long before most children or their parents even began to think about the future. "I'm going to design clothes," declared the tiny 14-year-old seamstress, not stopping her conversation while she quickly stitched a long seam on the machine. Her grandmother's old machine, clunky and more like a museum exhibit, was soon replaced by a modern electric model. Though the convenience and speed of sewing with the new machine were incomparable, Claudia still missed the soft, almost tap-tap sound of the old machine she had known since childhood. "What do you mean, design clothes?" her mother asked, surprised. "You mean sew?" "No, not just sew, but actually invent, model, create," Claudia explained patiently while continuing to work swiftly on the machine. Then she attended a play at the local operetta theater and came out terribly disappointed. "It's just strange," she reflected. "The play is interesting, the actors perform well, the singing is excellent, the decorations are nice, but the costumes, well, they're just awful. There's no character in them. A costume isn't just clothes. It should be an extension of the character, a reflection of them. And they dressed the romantic girl in some brown lace. Horrible. And it was uncomfortable for the actress, you could tell. She needed to raise her arms high, but she was afraid to rip the dress under her arms. It's a joke." "Oh, here comes our little theater critic," her friends teased. "Well, maybe they haven't asked me yet, but in the future, they might. Just wait and see." Claudia lifted her already buttoned-up nose and decisively placed her hands on her hips. After finishing school, Claudia enrolled in the Cultural Institute, choosing the mysterious and exotic profession of costume designer. "Well, where else could our Claudia end up?" laughed her grandmother. "When she was little, she dressed dolls, and now she's going to do the same, dress dolls, but the big, live ones." Studying at the Institute turned out to be surprisingly fascinating. Probably, few can say that during their student years, attending lectures, seminars, and workshops was the most exciting part. For Claudia, it was just that. All these disciplines, costume history, painting, design, scenography, even the incredibly boring-sounding materials science were captivating and interesting to her. After acing the costume production organization course, Claudia proudly rubbed her hands together and said, "Well, now I'll show them. I'll become the head costume designer, and I'll remind everyone who called me a brave little seamstress." Upon graduating with honors, Claudia got a job at the theater, though just as a costume designer's assistant, or as they jokingly called her, "Hey, little redhead, quick, pass me that." But very quickly, the condescending attitude gave way to surprise and trust. "Well done, girl," the veteran costume designer said, shaking his head. "She draws the sketches herself. It's a sight to see. Our designer is always amazed. Incredible imagination. And where does she come up with all this? And her cuts are always perfect. The way she sews, honestly, I never imagined it could be done like that. She knows it all." But that wasn't the most important thing. What really stood out was what had always made Claudia special since childhood: her taste, her sense of style, and her attention to detail, which she brought into everything she did. After just a few years, she became a full-fledged member of a large creative workshop, creating and sewing costumes not just for the theater but also for movie shoots. Claudia loved the atmosphere at work. The large, bright spaces with high ceilings seemed to an untrained eye like they were filled with clutter and large, intimidating machines. But in fact, the costume workshop was organized, albeit in a special way that only those who worked there could understand. Sketches, heated debates with artists and directors, searching for the right materials, working on costumes, endless measurements, fittings, adjustments, and then more discussions with those who would be wearing them. All of this was her work. It was difficult, stressful, and yet her favorite work. She especially loved the stage when a costume designed from sketches was first tried on by an actor or actress. And that's when what had just been a pile of fabric, lace, trim, and more suddenly took on meaning, becoming part of life, speaking with its character to those around it. And when Claudia heard that conversation, she knew the costume had succeeded. She also loved those actors who, understanding her tender care, didn't just stand there patiently or not so patiently posing as mannequins, but began to create their costume with her. It was from one such fitting that she met someone who, as it later turned out, would divide Claudia's life into two parts and change her forever. "Oh, Claudia, are the actors coming for the first fitting of The Tale of the Princess and the Seven Warriors today?" a colleague from the workshop asked her one morning. "Yes, they should," Claudia nodded. "Princess, Prince, some of the warriors, the stepmother, almost everyone. Why?" "Well, how can it be?" The girl was surprised. "That means Victor Vicente will be coming too." "Victor?" Claudia asked again. "So what?" "Some Victor is coming for a fitting." "What's so special about that?" "What do you mean, Claudia?" The girl blushed with indignation. "Some Victor? It's not just any Victor. It's the Victor, the one who has the lead role in Journey into Mystery." "Josefa, please excuse me, but I have no idea what this mystery is, or who this Victor traveling through it is." "No, really." The girl, clearly reaching the peak of astonishment, threw her hands up and sat down on a chair. "How can you not know? Everyone's watching this movie. The whole country. And everyone knows the actor who played the lead role. Everyone." "Well, then not everyone," Claudia smirked. "I, for example, have no idea about the movie or the actor. I just haven't been into movies lately. Though, you know, if someone hadn't messed up a few cloaks for the Royal Guards last week, I might have had time to go to the cinema this weekend." Claudia gave Josefa an ironic look. The girl tried to pretend that what had been said didn't apply to her. "Oh, Claudia, you must have heard of him. He's the hottest young actor right now. Well, maybe not the hottest, but definitely one of them. Although, personally, I think he's the best. And he's just, well, he's amazing. But the best part, his voice. His voice is just unbelievable." The girl rolled her eyes. "Josefa, have you fallen in love or something?" "Oh, for sure." "Wait," Claudia suddenly snapped. Why are you so dressed up today? Your eyes are made up, and I see you've curled your hair. What's going on with you? Are you waiting for a movie star for a fitting? Well, Claudia, it's just so interesting. He's such a heartthrob in the movie. I really want to see him in real life, the girl blurted, clearly excited. Listen, what if he turns out to be ugly in real life? Like with a wart, pimples, and tiny little eyes? Claudia burst out laughing. Makeup artists, they're no slouches. They can mask anyone. By the way, who is he playing in the play? A hero? A stepmother? What do you mean, Claudia? The girl retorted, offended on the actor's behalf. He's playing a prince, a Tsarevich. Of course, it's a huge task for a pretty boy to play a prince, Claudia mumbled as she worked. He should try playing an old woman, now that would be impressive. She paused. All right, Josefa, don't just stand there. We'll dress up your prince. By the way, if he's so popular and successful, why is he acting in a children's play? Well, I don't know. Probably a contract? Josefa mumbled, flustered. Well, he's still far from real fame, Claudia concluded. After lunch, the workshop was buzzing with activity. This was quite usual when actors came for fittings. Everyone was familiar with each other, exchanging news, jokes, comments, and opinions. The men joked with the seamstresses, and the costume designers promised to sew their tongues for the jokers. There was a typical uproar, but today it seemed just a bit more excited. Hey girls, they said Victor's coming? Claudia heard from one of the girls while working. Our diva's late as always, suddenly chuckled an elderly actor with an unconventional figure, whom Claudia was currently torturing with a complicated stage costume. He's always late for rehearsals. Started acting like a star. And instantly became a jerk. Thought he could get away with anything, Claudia muttered through a few pins she was holding in her mouth, an old, silly, but persistent habit. Well, not exactly. The man perked up. Actually, Cameron is a good guy and a talented actor, even very talented. You can't take that away from him. But, how should I put it, he's a bit of a joker. Always with the jokes and tricks. Like he never grew up. Oh, you'll see for yourselves. There he is, in person. Finally made it, didn't get dusty, the man said. Claudia, without stopping her work, glanced toward the place where everyone in the workshop seemed to suddenly be staring. She noticed a tall figure, dark hair, and a large, bright box in his hands. Hello, everyone. Special appreciation to the brave sorceresses of the needle and scissors. My apologies for the lateness. As an apology, please all take a candy, a well-trained baritone echoed. At these words, Claudia suddenly clearly remembered that Urka had mentioned something about an incredible voice. And indeed, she hadn't exaggerated. It was good, this voice, deep but not low, resonant yet soft, deep and warm. It enveloped everything around in invisible, gentle velvet, penetrating inside, conquering and dominating. What a scoundrel, the elderly actor quietly chuckled, looking at Claudia. Our baritone is a lyric dramatic, and he didn't do anything. Just opened his mouth and said a couple of silly things, and already all the ladies around are swooning. Oh, come on, it's just a voice. Claudia shrugged her shoulders, though she couldn't deny to herself that, for a few seconds, she too had absolutely swooned, as the old actor put it, along with everyone else, from the noble masculinity that seemed to fill the workshop. Well, don't say that, Claudia, the man continued to laugh. When Victor steps onto the stage and starts his Oscar monologue. You know, the one with those poignant, pitiful words. Oh, I remember now, loves me not, loves me not, loves me not. See, uncle, my mother doesn't love me. Trust me, you can feel the shiver run through the audience, and the other characters are just blown off the stage. Excuse me, I'm here for the fitting with Clara. Claudia suddenly heard the same voice, the one that sends shivers down the spine. First of all, it's not Clara, it's Claudia, she muttered, and second, you're late for the scheduled fitting time. I'm working on another costume right now, so you'll have to wait. And anyway, I understand, but I have absolutely no time. Sweetheart, Claudia, came the response. You know what? Claudia turned around, looked at the young man standing in front of her, and fell silent. He wasn't a dazzling movie heartthrob. He didn't have those piercing, demonic eyes, or the exaggeratedly curved lips, sharply sculpted cheekbones and chin, and other amazing features usually found in the classic standards of male beauty. And yet, there was something in his face that made Claudia look at him in surprise, then quickly avert her eyes. She caught herself thinking that she wanted to take another look. His features were handsome enough, with an open high forehead, dark hair rising above it, and thick brows running to his temples. Everything was good but not unique. But the eyes. The eyes were exceptional. If the saying that eyes are the mirror of the soul is true, then the soul of the man standing in front of Claudia must have been extraordinary. Because his eyes were extraordinary, dark gray, of a deep and rich graphite color, but not cold or hard. They shimmered with silver, as though soft pearl tones mixed with the firm, resolute gray, glowing from within. And on top of everything, all this beauty was framed by dark, arching lashes that made his eyes even more radiant. Incredible. Claudia involuntarily exhaled, then caught herself. You really are shameless. You'll wait, like a good boy. Like a good boy, he suddenly smiled. Well, that completely changes the matter. As a good boy, I'm ready to wait for you, dear Claudia, even for the rest of my life. He took a deep breath, slightly opened his extraordinary eyes, and sat down on a nearby chair. Talker, the elderly actor, burst out laughing as Claudia, despite her embarrassment, adjusted the final details of the costume. Oh, what a chatterbox you are, Vitya. And that's unfair, Eduardo. You're humiliating me in front of a lovely lady, the man calmly stated. By the way, I'm full of serious intentions. For example, to try on my royal prince's coat and ask the beautiful seamstress for her hand. Listen, Claudia said, exasperated. First of all, stop calling me that ridiculous name. My name is Claudia. And secondly, I don't want to do your fitting. Take your eyes and velvet voice and go to another costume designer. Claudia realized that she was behaving like an offended child, and the young man hadn't actually said anything rude, but for some reason, she couldn't find the right tone for the conversation with him. His directness, some boyish frivolity, and above all, the obvious desire to look at him again, were throwing her off. He stood up, shrugged, took a step aside, and then suddenly dropped to his knees, stretched out his visibly trembling hands toward her, and passionately began. Sweet, lovely, wonderful, forgive me, I beg you. I was blind, like a mole. I was thoughtless and unfair. Forgive me. You were right, Anna, absolutely right. You know me better than I know myself. You are the smartest woman in the world. You always understood me with just a word. And suddenly, in the workshop, there was a restrained but unmistakable male sobbing, and all his words, although seemingly spoken quickly, confusedly, and spasmodically, were still clearly heard by everyone in the vast room. Everyone froze in shock, and Claudia, standing a few steps from the kneeling man, turned into a statue. Apparently, to dispel any last doubts about to whom the passionate and heartfelt speech was directed, he, without getting up from his knees, grabbed Claudia's hand, pressed his forehead to hers, and began speaking again in a muffled, tearful tone, his magical baritone penetrating the very hearts of every involuntary spectator and listener of this strange scene. Are you surprised, Anna? I'm surprised myself. A strange day. Truly, strange, but beautiful. It's worth all my days before it, every single one of them. Do you understand me, Anna? How I lived before. I can't live like that anymore. And today is an amazing day. It's like I'm starting a new life, and honestly, I'm rediscovering this world, like an alcoholic who's come out of a binge. Everything is coming back to me, the evening, the street, the forest, the trees. It's as if I haven't seen them since childhood. And you, Anna, understand me. Only now I truly see you. You are the kindest, the smartest, the most beautiful woman in the world. You are a magnificent woman. I want you to understand that I need nothing else in this life. I want you to forgive me. He sobbed again, shuddered all over, and fell silent. In the complete silence of the workshop, only the sound of cars passing outside, someone's persistently ringing phone, and the ragged breathing of the sufferer could be heard. And Claudia suddenly caught herself thinking that she terribly wanted to sink down to the floor next to this unfortunate man, pull his head to her, and forgive him. For something. For anything, just so he wouldn't suffer like that. What a bastard! Suddenly exhaled the elderly actor, Eduardo. This is a monologue from last summer. Well, Victor, you're something else. Even I believed it. Anna. Ugh. Just think how he's got our heads spinning. Claudia, don't be so scared. He's just messing around, probably apologizing at the same time. Huh? What? Claudia, struggling to come to her senses, stretched out her hand, which had felt the warm skin of the man, and this caused an unusual, unfamiliar, anxious yet joyful feeling in her, but he held her firmly. It's you. Well, Victor, what are you doing? Please, get up. I won't get up, he suddenly said, almost inaudibly, but in such a way that everyone who had started to move and talk again froze, hoping for the continuation of the scene. I won't get up until you forgive me and allow me to call you Claudia. You can call me Anna, it's nothing new for you. Just get up, please, and let go of my hand, she whispered, blushing from the absurdity of the situation. Around them, everyone was whispering in astonishment and involuntarily smiling, coming out of the hypnosis of his performance and voice. Yes, Victor, you certainly have a tremendous talent, said the old actor. A little more common sense and seriousness, and you'd be priceless. Oh, come on, Eduardo. When they start casting me for roles like Hamlet or a prince, I'll immediately become academic, serious, and restrained. Just wait and see. Smiled Victor, with not a trace of the deep emotions he had just played on his face. And today, what am I? A prince. I need optimism now. After all, I still have to kiss a dead girl in a glass coffin. In a day, and on Saturdays and Sundays for 2 months. He finished with general laughter. Yes, indeed, it's going to be tough for you, smiled Claudia, because it was impossible to be angry with this man. Well, we'll have to dress you properly. Otherwise, what will your fiancée think when she wakes up and you're in rags? Then there was the fitting of the fairy tale prince costume by actor Victor. Claudia couldn't tell how many minutes it lasted. Her nervousness was in the way. It was entirely new for her. He was so close to her. She could hear his breath, his hair brushing against hers, and his face seemed to be begging to be touched by her fingertips, lightly gliding across his cheek, touching his eyelashes. She had to close her eyes a few times and take a deep breath, fighting against strange, unsettling sensations. It seemed that Victor had also felt something, because throughout the fitting, he was unusually silent, answering all of Claudia's questions diligently, and she even thought that this person could actually be serious. But he immediately regained his reputation. Well, that's it, Claudia, Victor said sadly, now you simply have to marry me. I'm hopelessly compromised. What? Claudia was surprised, almost choking on the pin she was holding in her lips, as all seamstresses do, against all common sense. Well, how could it be? He sighed. You're publicly dressing me, and I have no secrets left from you. And then, I already knelt in front of you. Also, by the way, in front of witnesses, and practically confessed my love to you. Calling me Anna, she nodded. Is that really the main thing? He suddenly said in his wonderful voice. The main thing is that you are the most wonderful, the most beautiful, and the smartest woman in the world. All right, Claudia, feeling herself blush, slapped him on his brocaded back, harder than necessary. The caftan is basically fine. Just take it in a little and make the collar stiffer. Take it off. The next fitting in a couple of days. I won't last 2 days, he suddenly muttered. I need to see you sooner. You figured out the captain, but what about me? Me? Claudia was surprised. Well, with you, basically, it's the same. You, Victor, are way too confident. They say you're almost a star. Well, when you become a full-fledged star, then we'll talk. Finally, she found the right tone with this unusual person, who had the looks of a real man and the character of a boy. Claudia, you're cruel, have mercy, he said, evidently invoking his main advantage, his voice. For a moment, she was taken aback, feeling her heart flutter, and her hand practically reached for his outstretched one. She quickly hid both palms behind her back and said, Go, go. You see, I don't meet unfinished princes. Then she stood in front of the mirror for a long time, looking at her reflection, and realized that she didn't recognize herself because this was a completely different Claudia. The previous one wasn't in love, but this new one was. And lying to herself that it wasn't true would simply be foolish. 6 months later, a new film starring Victor was released. It was a huge success. They predicted a ton of awards and nominations for it. And half of the credit was given to the lead actor, young Victor. Everyone around talked about him as the brightest star of his generation, the heir to the best acting traditions, and the main hope of the national cinema. What's more, critics wrote that lately Victor's acting had become deeper, more mature, and more self-aware, as if the actor himself was going through some deep emotional rise. Thousands of fans were going crazy for him, and the owner of those beautiful eyes and magical voice dreamed only of one thing every day, for all the fuss and endless matters to end quickly so that he could see her again, his little fairy, his baby, as he called her. To scoop her up in his arms and spin her around, burying his face in her reddish, fluffy hair. And no one knew that she was the very reason for that emotional surge that had intensified Victor's performance. Claudia, you're going to the Film Academy Festival, right? Victor suddenly asked her. They were sitting in their favorite cafe. Claudia was enthusiastically drawing his portrait, and he was thoughtfully twiddling a napkin with his fingers. No, of course not. Why would I? Claudia was surprised. I'm not an actress, not even the wife of an actor. But you'll become one, I hope. He murmured, and for some reason, almost imperceptibly, blushed. Well, when it happens, she waved her hand. First, I'll need to find an actor, one that suits me, and who'll agree to marry me. Claudia, seriously, he leaned over the table, I'm going to marry you, whether you want it or not. You're not going anywhere. I just need to, well, he seemed to darken, closed his eyes with his hand, struggled to swallow, obviously overcoming something, and when he removed his hand from his face, he was the same familiar Victor again. First, I need to become a real star, worthy of the best costume designer in the world. Don't flatter yourself, smiled Claudia, I still won't go. Well, Claudia. Victor whined. But I don't want to go without you. Listen, I'm not going to hug you on camera. You'll just be in the hall. I'll find you with my eyes, and you'll be with me until I get that glass bear or horse, whatever they give for winning. No, Victor, you're quite the bold one, Claudia laughed. You're so sure that the main prize will be given to you? I'm sure of that, he waved his hand. But about something else, Claudia, he seemed hesitant again. I need to have a very serious conversation with you. You can be serious, she looked closely at her drawing, then at the real thing. Sometimes I think you're the most unserious person in the world, Victor. All right, give me your serious talk. Well, Claudia, I need to tell you that. He pushed aside the napkin that was annoying him. I want to say that there are only a couple of weeks left until the awards ceremony, and you still haven't decided what you're going to wear. Because I'm not going, Claudia explained tiredly. Vitya, have you lost your mind? I don't even have anything to wear. It's easy for you. You throw on a tuxedo, a bow tie, especially since it suits you so well. And that's it, you're ready to go. But for us women, it's 10 times harder. I have nothing to wear, and finding something takes time. And nothing ever fits me. Especially with my height. I can imagine how I'd look among all your storks. Claudia. Victor suddenly lit up. You're an amazing seamstress. The most beautiful and graceful woman in the world. It's an extraordinary combination. So why wait? Sew yourself the best dress. Want me to bring you the most beautiful fabric in the world? Something worthy of my little flower fairy. And a few days later, with the gesture of a magician, he placed a small box in front of her. She breathed out in awe. His wonderful, soft, velvety voice, as gentle as precious silk, shimmered around them. Oh my God, what a miracle! I knew it, Claudia. I love you. So much. A few days later, one of Claudia's fellow costume designers spoke as she pushed a magazine aside, on the cover of which Victor's graphite gray, pearl-like eyes stared out at her. The fuss around Victor, of course, is just unbelievable, she said. It's amazing, you look at him and see such a person. Superhero material. But dig a little deeper, and he's just another small, petty jerk and weirdo, just like the rest of them. Claudia had grown used to the different opinions about Victor, from admiring to contemptuous, and she knew the true value of most of them. Simple human envy for his success and talent. She only smiled slightly to herself. I saw him recently. By the way, he was giving autographs. Oh, every look of his could knock you out. The woman suddenly turned to Claudia. And by the way, he actually has a family. A wife, a legal one, and a child. I don't remember whether it's a daughter or a son. Someone told me they got married when they were studying in acting school together. Her father is some big shot, can't even compare. So, there you go. Claudia, are you crazy? What are you doing? Claudia? Claudia looked at the woman in confusion as she suddenly grabbed her arm with wide eyes and then looked down at her hand, which for some reason she couldn't lift. Her hand was resting on the mannequin's light shoulder, and large drops of something red were trickling down. Claudia, you've sewn your hand right through. There's blood everywhere. Someone help, the costume designer screamed. Claudia tried to understand why she couldn't feel anything. Nothing at all. Not with her hand, not with her head, not with her heart. Although, no, that's not true. Her heart felt it. It hurt so much. She didn't want to see him, yet they met one last time. Claudia, he spoke hoarsely, as if forcing each word out with difficulty. I should have told you everything right away. About my life, but I couldn't. I tried so many times, I almost said it, but then I chickened out. Yes, Claudia, I'm a coward. Yes, you're a coward, she nodded, trying her best to appear cold and calm. And you're also a scoundrel and a liar. And I have nothing to talk to you about. Claudia, he sighed. Don't talk to me. Just listen to me. That's the dumbest thing I could do, listen to you, she smiled bitterly. You're a siren in pants. Listening to you is my doom. Did you use your beautiful baritone to lure your wife in as well? Behind her jokes and irony, she tried to hide the tremble, the confusion, the pain. Oh no, it was more like they lured me in, Victor muttered, flinching from her words as if struck. Diana, well, we were in our second year at the acting school, and he painfully fell silent. And you played around too much, Claudia interjected. Well, it's clear, a cliché and a silly story. Yes, cliché and silly, Victor nodded obediently. Diana got pregnant. I wasn't planning on running away or anything. So, we got married. Diana's father is a big shot in our film industry. Victor named him, and despite the gravity of the situation, Claudia involuntarily whistled. The surname sounded very familiar. Well, it was explained to me that he didn't want to see his only daughter as a single mother and divorcee at 20. And if I still tried something, I could forget about my profession and career. They wouldn't even give me a role as a log at a children's play. But as soon as I stopped resisting and smiled, I immediately got a role in Journey into Mystery. So, they bought you, Claudia said. Yes, they bought me, but it was expensive, Victor smirked. And then I went up, and my husband of a rising star and screen star stock skyrocketed. Well, your stocks aren't too bad, Victor. You can live with that, she replied. She stood up, but he gently and cautiously sat her back down. Claudia, he spoke quietly, hoarsely, with pain in his voice and face, is that it? Yes, that's it. I pity you, Victor, and I pity myself too, Claudia replied. You've played too much, Victor. Played too much and lied too much. You've impersonated others so often that it seems you've forgotten something very important about yourself. Or maybe it was never important to you. Maybe you don't even know what real feelings are. I've already told you, I think you don't know how to be serious. I can't trust you. I'll never be able to, that's the worst part. She stood up again, now firmly holding her hands out in front of her. Never touch me again. It's over. She started heading toward the exit, but couldn't resist glancing back, biting her lip in pain from the urge to rush to him, hug him, forgive him, and hear his soft, hoarse, velvety, almost tangible words spoken in his voice. She shook her head, pushing the desires away, and boldly spoke. All right, Victor, don't be sad. You played the lover well, but there will be other roles. After all, you're an actor. A great actor. In the end, that first confession of yours, the one where it all started, it was just someone else's monologue from some play. Goodbye. Claudia spoke, and Christina, holding her breath, listened. And then? You never saw him again, she asked, realizing that the story was over. Never, Claudia shook her head. A month later, I quit the theater, then married your father. And it seems he stopped acting in movies. Victor. I don't remember that actor, Christina muttered, though, wait, something vaguely rings a bell, but it's very old and forgotten. Yes, of course, Claudia smiled. Old and forgotten, like we are, like our youth, faces, and films, everything is forgotten and grows old, except for this silk. She opened the box again and finally touched its shimmering surface with her palm. Although, you know, natural fabric also ages. So, let's sew you a dress out of it before it becomes completely worn out. Wow! You made a dress out of some old rag, and now you think you'll be the queen at the celebration. Juan, Christina's husband, tried to protest, but when he saw his wife in the finished outfit, he whistled in amazement. Christina, you look incredible, he exclaimed. What is this? You're glowing in it. My little queen. The grand evening dedicated to the anniversary of Juan's company was organized on a large scale. And Christina was already very tired when a tall, starting to gray, handsome man with dark gray eyes cautiously approached her, as if moving blindfolded on thin ice. Excuse me, my question might seem outrageous to you, but where did you get this dress? He asked Christina in a voice that made her skin tingle, as if covered with goosebumps. His soft, velvety baritone, with a slight rasp hidden somewhere deep within, was mesmerizing, commanding, and it was impossible not to answer. And so, she did. My mother made it. And your mother's name is Claudia, he didn't ask, he simply stated. Yes, how did you guess? Christina replied in surprise, not understanding anything, yet beginning to understand everything at once. I have a piece of your dress, he said. A long time ago, I kept a part of it as a memory. A memory of a girl I loved very much and lost because of my own stupidity. He smiled and pulled a small piece of silk from his jacket pocket. I've carried it in my pocket all my life, he said, then looked up at Christina. Silk in my pocket, and Claudia in my heart. Look, it's exactly the same. There's no second piece of fabric with this exact color. In the world, it simply doesn't exist, Christina finished for him. I know, Victor. He looked at her and smiled. Do you still love her? Christina whispered. Of course, he nodded. All my life, only her. And she loves you, Christina nodded, beginning to smile with joy. I love you, Claudia, he said. Now you can believe me. Yes, I can. Now I can, she nodded, wiping away her tears. And you know, Victor, do you know what I missed the most all these years? Your voice.
If you're enjoying it as well, leave a like and subscribe to the channel.